The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah! Now, here's Steve Austin.
Gunshots fired in the area. Colt Cabana sitting here at 316 Gimmick Street. Here, Colt, welcome to the house, man. How are you?
You know, I was scared to come to, we're not at the Broken Skull Ranch.
Well, we are.
Okay,
West Coast Division.
The West Coast Division. I thought, okay, we're here, and this is nice and safe. But yeah, literally as you pushed record there, you think that was a gunshot? That was probably a garage door closing.
Probably a garage door closing. I'm going to say that so you don't freeze up and get nervous on me, and I lose conversation. It'll be like Cindy Brady on the Brady Bunch back when they started filming her on the game show gimmick, and she just froze up and looked at the camera. I can't have you freeze up. We've got to deliver audio whoop-ass. So as far as you know, it was a garage door.
And you also can't give me Brady Bunch references.
No Brady Bunch references.
Okay, you want to talk Breaking Bad? We can talk Breaking Bad. But we can't start off with 70 shows that I know nothing about.
Okay, stop. Stop. Check it out. Are you a Breaking Bad fanatic?
Of course.
Dig this. My wife and I don't really watch any TV. Of course, there's some award-winning shows like Redneck Island.
Right.
And of course, we watch. Our together TV we watch, and believe this or not, I've announced this on a podcast before. People know I'm a pretty tough guy. I'm a pretty macho guy. But I'm not afraid to admit that I watched The Bachelor and The Bachelorette with my wife. And it hurts me to say that. I probably lost a couple of man cards across this globe.
Yeah.
But my wife just started watching Breaking Bad 2 nights ago. She watched the pilot, was totally hooked. I was in the kitchen making something. I saw a couple of scenes. I've heard all the hoopla. I know it's badass. So my wife is a recent convert. She's in there. She hooked up the Apple TV in there, and she's watching it right now.
So you want me to tell you all this? Oh, you're not going to join her? Like, you're not going to?
I mean, I was in here getting ready for you.
But you're not going to watch this whole season with her. So she's going to watch this unbelievable TV show.
No, I'm going to watch it.
I hope you do.
Yeah, I've got to do like 2 or 3 catch-up episodes so I can be on the same track with her.
And that'll be a great,
okay, check it out. Is it worth me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that'll be a great thing that you guys do together. You have this, together time you watch Breaking Bad. It's going to be great. I was hooked up to Millionaire Matchmaker. I was watching that. Do you know that show? I got caught on Millionaire Matchmaker like a sucker.
How many seasons did you watch it? Now, there are wrestling fans around the world thinking, what the you got Colt Cabana and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they're talking about Millionaire Matchmaker.
You know, when I was in WWE, I this was before John and Kate plus 8 got really big. Before it got big, and then it got huge.
Yeah.
I sat Dusty down and I said, listen, Dusty, I'm addicted.
The Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said, hey, Dusty, let me tell you something, baby. That's what I said. Yeah. I said, Dusty, I'm addicted to John and Kate plus 8. I shouldn't be. At that point, I'm a 30-year-old man. I'm machismo, right? I'm a pro wrestler, but I love this show. I am hooked. I am addicted to these guys' life. And I said, this is what, and then this was my pitch. I pitched a bunch of these vignettes where we lead up to my debut would be like a reality show. And this was before, I guess kind of NXT or whatever. And I wanted to kind of pitch reality show vignettes where we do them 3 minutes. I do 8 of them, 3 minutes on WWE.com. You show 30 seconds of it on SmackDown or whatever, and then say to watch the rest, go to WWE.com. That way you're driving people to the website, and then all of a sudden they're getting invested in this reality show stuff. So my debut would be you would watch the last one on the Titantron right before I go out the curtain. They're following me through the curtain, and it's the last one is me going awkwardly shaking Mr. McMahon's hand, and it's really weird because that's what it would have been like had that happened. And I know we talked about before a little bit of the wrestling and reality, but the reality show it sucks you in whether it's scripted or not. It sucks you in.
Colt.
I see you. You're ready to talk. Something's up there.
Jesus Christ. Let me
go on.
Colt, you're a distinguished veteran of almost 15 years inside the squared circle, right?
Yes.
And highly accomplished, I might add. You watched John and Kate plus 8?
Before it got big. Oh, you're mad about that?
Well, I admitted that I watched The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, but at some point, you got to draw a line, and you can't cross that line, but seemingly, you're my first guest that has ever not only admitted, but bragged about loving John and Kate plus 8.
I didn't want to, Steve. I didn't want to.
But what about that show reached into your heart and started pulling those Colt Cabana heartstrings and said, I got to watch this.
And I'm a little bit embarrassed about it now, Like, I have no clue. It's just enjoying some television. Can't blame me for that, can you?
Okay, enjoying television. Check it out. Let's switch gears.
All right.
You've been in the podcast business now with The Art of Wrestling.
Yep.
A couple of years. How long?
Yeah, over 3 years now.
So what was your inspiration to start? And you just said, hey, man, I'm going to start podcasting.
Well, I mean, there's so many ways we can go with this. And we could probably talk an hour about podcasting. And
No. Just what inspired you to start?
No, but I'm saying we could if we wanted to. But I had a voice, and I wanted a weekly something, and I was creative, and I needed an outlet, and nobody in the world of professional wrestling would give me an outlet. So I had to work for myself, and I had to find my own outlet, and that outlet was podcasting. And I believed in myself. Nobody else really believed in me. The fans, and I hate that. It sounds kind of cheesy, the fans, but
no.
But people out there really, really supported me, but I had no promotion to be supported in, so I went to podcasting. Now, I, at the time, was a huge podcasting fan because in 2009, the first thing someone recommended to me a show called Comedy Death Ray, which is now Comedy Bang Bang, which is turned into a TV show, and you can see how the podcasting world has grown to where now podcasts are getting TV shows and spin-offs and stuff like that. So comedy podcasts, there was a big comedy podcast boom a couple years ago. I was like, nobody's doing the wrestling version of wrestlers talking to wrestlers because the comedy podcast was comedians talking to comedians.
Right.
And I was like, no one's doing the wrestling version. And then I was like, I can't wait till the wrestling version comes out because I'd listened to it.
Right.
I can't wait for Stone Cold. Stone Cold, where are you? This was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Why don't I just do it?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I took a comedic aspect to it, and there's shows like, I know you were on Jay Moore, and Jay Moore was on yours, and there's, Mark. I was on Mark Maron's podcast, and Corolla, and there's just so many of these great guys just doing this stuff.
Guys that are really good at what they do.
Amazing, and they've been in the business. So when they talk shop, it's like when they're talking shop.
It's like a couple of cats from a squared circle talking about our business. Mm-hmm. They're so good at theirs,
and it's locker room talk. And I was saying that at that point I was in the locker rooms. We were having conversation, locker room talk, talking about the stuff, not necessarily talking about the science of wrestling, And that's when I realized, well, let's start recording these things. Let's jump into the podcast world, and I did that. And that was 2010, the summer. So, 2010.
But when you first started. And from where you've gone to now, and I've listened to, many of your shows, and a natural talker, a gift for gab.
Thank you.
You do your homework. Obviously, you've been in the business for 15 years. You've been around the horn a few times. You know the ins and outs of the squared circle. It's easier for you to converse with people, not only in general, but especially from our business. But when you first started your show, did you just say, hey, man, I'm going to take this approach, and here's my format? Because in my show, man, I kind of, when I turn my show in, they'll put some commercial spots in, or I'll throw to a break here or there, but I don't have I'm going to do 15 minutes of shtick. Then I'm going to talk to this cat for 30 minutes, and I'm going to do 15 minutes of that and make an hour out of it. Mine is what it is, and that's the way my brain works. Mm-hmm. So since you were one of the front runners, because you got in pretty early, what was your thought process just as far as what it was going to be?
Yeah, I've said this publicly. I was very inspired by Mark Maron, and I said that in news articles and media outlets. And I didn't want to say that I was completely copying Mark, but the greatest thing he ever did was when he reached back to me and he had me on the podcast, because I know a lot of people used Mark's formula, and I was never like emailing him and tweeting him being like, I'm using your. I was just I wanted to give him the credit,
right?
You know. When the Chicago Reader did a front page article on me, I didn't want to be like, well, this is what I'm doing. I was super inspired by Mark Maron, and I had Comedy Death Ray had songs on. So if you notice on all mine, I put on these obscure wrestling songs.
Hey, so what's the story on that? I mean, can you play any song for a certain amount of time before you've got?
Oh, I don't know the legality of it.
So
I'm not charging. That's how I look at it. I think that's how it works now. It might change in the future,
right?
But we're not charging for these things. These are free of charge.
But it's interesting how the podcast business is starting to grow. And I'm a newbie, man. I've been doing this for about 6 months. You've been at it for a while. But now, because of the way this whole genre is growing from the corporate side, especially, into 2014, now bigger companies, with money are actually considering the podcast model as a place to use some of their advertising money. So,
and for so long, they were ignoring
damn
it.
right.
and which was fine because it wasn't about grabbing sponsorships for me. It was about making a connection with my listeners and making a connection with people. And what happened with me, and I know this is a completely different ballgame with you because I'm still wrestling. I wrestle every week, and because of the podcast now, I even wrestle more. You know, I'm probably on the road 200 days a year, if not more.
Well, that's one of the things about the podcast is you can promote yourself and help the card out. Go ahead with your thought.
Yeah, it all goes full. It all helps everything. I'm making a connection with fans. Now I have a lot more listeners. Now I can bring my friends on.
Yeah.
I bring on Cliff Compton. I bring on Luke Gallows, who they saw as Domino and Luke Gallows on TV, and they go, these guys suck. They're just two-dimensional wrestlers. And then they talk with me, and they're like, "These guys are amazing!
Yeah.
What great people they are!" You know.
Yeah.
And because of that, now promotions want to book me,
right?
And so now I'm wrestling more places, and now people know more about me, and they know that I don't have a contract to anybody. So the way I do it is literally hand to mouth here. Like I need your T-shirt purchase to live.
Right.
I need it to live.
Right.
And they want to buy a T-shirt because it's not going to some giant corporation.
Right.
It's going directly to me and 1 Hour Tees, who was my partner, and we're working together, and we're making ProWrestlingTees.com. And so what's worrying me a little bit is now, like you said, corporations starting to jump into the podcast world.
But with that being said, I mean, you know, you get in business to be in business, and listening to why you started your podcast. I mean, all of a sudden, I want to start a podcast about a year ago, but sometimes I'm just a little hard-headed or slow to get things started. And these guys said, hey, they called me up and said, do you want to do a podcast? And I said, you're damn right I do, because I've been wanting to. I just needed a kick in the ass. Mm-hmm. But my whole deal was the same thing you just said. I'm a creative person, and once you come off, and I've been gone from wrestling a long time, 10, 11 years from Monday Night Raw, but there's that creative outlet in me, that performer in me that likes to, I wanted to stay in touch with my fan base, that I worked my ass off to get back in touch with them and still entertain them. But with that being said, and to be true to myself, but be true to them and represent, I'm very candid, I'm very honest on this thing, I tell it like it is. I want to entertain people. I do my show for the working man, you know, much the way, the same way you do.
I am the working man.
Yeah, damn right. We all are. You still got to work. They keep sending those gimmicks in the mail called bills, and you must pay them. Yeah. So anyway, hey, we've been talking about podcasting and comedy. Man, let's talk a little bit about pro wrestling.
Sure.
You're on the road right now. Yeah. You live in Chicago. You just came into Los Angeles. You're going to be working about 4 or 5 days on a video game, and you're going to put on the bodysuit with the markers on it so they can track your movements. Yeah. Incorporate this into the video game, correct?
Well, correct. I don't think I'm supposed to be talking about it. But if 2K4 doesn't want the advertisement, then tough,
no, I'm good friends with Bryce and the guys at 2K14.
Well, I'm not supposed. I've been doing this for about 7 years with them.
Yeah,
and we're told to keep it under wraps, but I think they're okay with myself and Stone Cold talking about this. Is part of the hustle. This is part of being an uncontracted wrestler. This is part of I get paid individually by each show, and this to me is like every year, every kind of October, November, December, I do some of this video game work, and this is stuff that I rely on to help me pay my bills. Like, this is part of me as an independent contractor, as a true independent contractor, not an independent contractor with a contracted company.
An independent contractor where they got you by the balls.
Right, yeah. This is part of, like, the quote unquote the hustle. Like, this is stuff I have to do, but it's the best, and like I can never complain about it. And what an unbelievable thing is that I'm going to get paid to mock your movements so you can be on a wrestling video game. I've been doing it. I was doing it while I was in OVW. I was doing it while I was in FCW. Then I got released, and then they stopped using the developmental talent. And so the guys that they knew that did a good job, they brought us back. And so I continued to do the work for the video game.
I just did a interview with ESPN. We're good. I was there playing passing by. I just did an interview for E60 this coming Tuesday.
Oh, cool! I'll watch that.
They're going to have it's a special about how the technology has come so far since the first video game. So now they asked me had I ever done any of the tracking movement stuff. And back in the day, they had requested that I do a few, but somehow, some way, I always scapegoated out of it and got out of it, didn't have to do it. And so I said, no, but I'm talking to a guy that does that. So how long are these sessions and how intensive is it? Are you guys out there bumping? You're running high spots? You're mimicking guys?
It's funny you say that. Usually, for years I did the entrances, and nobody could get down K-Quick's entrance. Like, they tried everyone to do it, or Ron Killings or The Truth, And so eventually they had to bring it. Like, they had to bring him in. They had to bring in Hornswoggle. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody can do it. Yeah. So, I know we're doing all the things. One of coolest things that I've ever done, I guess, in my career. And it's weird that I'm sitting here and talking to you, but for me, as a guy who grew up 18 years old watching the Attitude Era and watching Mick Foley getting thrown off the top of the cage was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And then years later, I'm the movement in the video game of getting hucked off the cage.
Yeah.
And I guess Ezekiel Jackson, who is in WWE, he's the one who threw me. So he was Undertaker, and he threw me off. I got to take that big spill. You know, they put up all these, what's it called?
Scaffolding?
Scaffold. Yep.
Yeah.
They put up all these scaffolds and then hucked me off into a bunch of pads. So much fun. But yeah, I mean, it's real work. It is real work. We're there from 8 to 6. We're working hard.
But they treat you good. Treat you like human beings.
They're great.
Yeah.
THQ was great,
Yeah.
and now actually this is my first time with 2K4, but it's under the same guys, and it's I'm looking forward to it. They treat us great. They pay us handsomely. 5-star. It's amazing that you go and you wrestle these indie shows, and you're maybe the main event or one of the top talents, and and you're put in this awful hotel, and no water backstage, because that's how it is in the indie world.
Yeah.
And
let's shift gears into the indie world, because that's one of the things that, as long as I've been in the business, and, I'm not currently in the business. I've been gone 10 or 11 years, but I'm not really out of the business because I never said, hey, I'm retired.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love how much you love the wrestling, by the way.
Oh, yeah, man. I guess,
it comes through on the podcast.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
'Cause it's a real deal. But my thing is, when I started Dallas, WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling, USWA, and then on to WCW, fired, ECW, WWF, WWE, and then out. So I was always with somebody. I never really got to be on the indie scene. You've been on and off the indie scene for the majority of your career.
And I would say even in developmental, it was basically I was basically an independent wrestler with a paycheck,
Right.
So
I want to ask you about the independent scene currently.
Yeah.
You're 33 years old. You've been in ring almost 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
How much more do you have left in the tank?
The style, and my fans will know the style that I do. I can see myself doing this at 60 years old. I wrestle for Pro Wrestling Noah sometimes.
Yeah.
And Taue, who's a legend in All Japan, and now he's the president of Noah. He would wrestle the opening match, and they would do some comedy matches, and like he was pushing 60. He's pushing 60, 55, whatever it might be, and he's still in there. Doing the opening match, doing the comedy match, and like I pictured myself like, man, it was almost romantic. Like, I can't wait to be 60 years old and doing comedy matches in the opener, because I
take your time, don't rush 60.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It seems fun to me. So my style,
but
I have
right
a comedic style. I have a comedic
style. But was it always a comedic style?
No.
Any major injuries?
Yeah. A blown out quad, 2 MCL tears, 2 shoulder tears, chipped teeth, lacerated cheek. I don't want to say lacerated, but like giant swollen. I don't know technical terms.
Contusion.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
But like a massive contusion.
Yeah, I'm like a doctor.
Yeah, look
over
at
here.
you. I'm impressed.
Any major surgeries?
No surgeries. I've been grateful for that. Actually, my fans will know that I was almost taken out with a finger injury. I almost lost my finger last year.
How was that?
It wasn't from wrestling. It was from picking a scab in an airplane while up elevated. Germs got in there, and my finger swole up, and they almost had to cut it off. Yeah, I had a surgery. You can see a little scar there. But,
Damn, I'm about to puke over here.
Oh, so, yeah.
Germs infecting an open wound at 40,000 feet. Mm-hmm. Germs are superpowers when they're that high in the air. I can't explain it. That's just the way it is. And if I said it on the Steve Austin show, it must be true. A germ almost got your finger.
What if
you're
you
hooked on Johnny K plus 8? Swig a beer for the working man.
There, he's doing it. That's legit. I'm swigging a water.
Let's talk about your training.
Wait, I want to know if you lost. What if you lost your middle fingers in the Attitude Era?
Oh, man.
How different would wrestling be right now?
People always ask me, I said, did you get your middle fingers insured by Lloyd's of London?
Yeah, that's a great question.
At the time, I wasn't making enough money, and I'm so cheap anyway. I couldn't afford Lloyd's of London, but I could have insured them with Boyd's of Biloxi. The working man's insurance.
Or just Lloyd.
But
guy named Lloyd down the street.
Yeah. Not a bunch of Lloyds, just one Lloyd. That would have been if I'd have thought about that, I might have should have done it. I'd have never. There was a couple of guys back in the day.
Sure.
I won't mention any names that got their backs and stuff insured with Lloyd's.
I think we all know who.
A couple of payoffs. That just never was my MO. Mm-hmm. But the current indie scene, what's the caliber of work out there right now?
There's a lot of great guys, And there are, and you can name the promotions, the PWGs of the world, which is out here, and I recommend you heading over to Reseda and like putting a hoodie on and sneaking in there and watching Kevin Steen and Adam Cole and some of these guys.
I keep hearing that the Kevin Steen name, the Kill Steen Kill guy.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
So, well, tell me about this guy.
I'm one of my good friends.
Right.
We're these group of guys, almost, and I don't want to compare us to a Samoa Joe and a CM Punk, but years ago, they said Samoa Joe and CM Punk could never be stars in wrestling,
right.
And here we are later, And they say, and you look at Kevin Steen, and maybe body-wise, you don't say this guy could be a star in wrestling.
How big cat is he?
I mean, he's got a big stomach area, I guess. And Kevin, I love you, you know that. But people,
Well, how tall is he?
6 foot, 6'1".
What does he weigh?
270.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
See, that's fine. 6 foot, 250, whatever. I mean, what gets me these days is that there is such a thing about body types, and everybody, they want to hire the mesomorphs and the ectomorphs and the guys that are long and lean and pretty, and they got a tan and a couple of tattoos, maybe strategically placed, but everybody looks like they came out of a Xerox machine, man. And I miss the days of Dusty Rhodes, my type of physique. Bruiser Brody, the different cats, Barry Windham, and of course, Abdullah the Butcher, those kind of cats. So, if the guy's got any talent, how old is he?
29. Yeah.
Jesus
but
Christ,
a connection.
A connection
with the crowd.
People dig him in the independent scene. How long has he been working?
They love him. 10, 12, 13 years now.
What kind of worker is he? Hardcore, bruiser
Brawler,
style?
Yeah. Brawler. He's got a fun mouth. He can talk very well. He learned English He's from Montreal.
Okay.
He learned English from watching Jim Ross.
Oh, wow.
Is that amazing?
Does it sound like he's from Oklahoma?
Yeah, imagine.
By God!
And for some weird reason, he's always got a hat on. I don't understand why.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the guy.
But by and large, across the board, what kind of work on a 1 to 10 in general on the indie scene? Where is the level of work?
It's
5.
It all varies, man.
Across the board.
I've worked with a couple lately,
right.
But because I'm confident in my skills and I know as a wrestler what I can and cannot do with an individual, and I know how I can make this guy look good, or what I'm saying, like that. I work with what I have.
How many matches are on your standard indie card?
That I'm wrestling 8 or 9.
So you get to the building. You're going to work with Joe Blow. Y'all get there. Y'all going to just make up your match in the dressing room and follow that verbatim? Or y'all going to set out a fishbone and fill in the gaps?
Well, it's weird. As much as open as I am about wrestling and my love for wrestling, I stay away from telling the exact dissection of how pro wrestling works because I have bits I like to say. And I work in a comic because sometimes I see myself more as a stand-up comedian than I do as a wrestler sometimes. And I have bits. I have jokes that I tell. And, sometimes I'll say to the guy, hey, 4, 5, 6, 7, here's some of my bits. When I feel it, I'm going to let you know when we get to this bit, and you'll know that we'll go into it, and then we'll go into it, and then we'll die it down a little bit. And that's kind of how I work.
Okay, so then I can dig that. So you're working as a babyface in pro wrestling, heel traditionally calls a match. When I was running hot as Stone Cold, babyface, but a very ruthless babyface, but nonetheless a babyface, because I don't hear very well, I call all my matches.
Is that how that started?
Yeah.
Is that all that what started?
I just don't know. Yeah, basically it did. And
because I was just about to say what, like joking, mocking on you, but then I was like, oh, wait,
okay.
that's your thing.
If you can make this crowd laugh, go for it.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
So you and Joe Blow working. He's heel. You're baby. You got 15 years experience. Who's calling the match? You can at least say that.
I am. I'm the general for sure. I'm taking control.
Okay, so then you go on the match with Kill Steen Kill. Who's calling the match?
We have mutual respect for each other.
Mutual respect.
Yeah, and
splitting the duties.
Yeah, it's just we can talk to each other.
Okay,
it's not a problem. But I know I understand because of my love for wrestling, and I know the traditions of. It's easier for the heel to call the whole match, and I've been taught the reasons why and the reasons why how it went
and
down.
some are true and some are not. It's just basically my approach anytime you go in the ring was You know, if you go into a territory, a lot of guys, want to go out there and work kind of like a 90, 10, 80, 20, 70, 30 type thing as far as taking rather than giving because they must get over. But once you get in the ring and if it's just a show or a cold match or it is what it is, my approach going in the ring was unselfish. I am in there to have a good match. If you and me are working, popcorn match or we're the main event, my approach with you is let's go have a good match. Bottom line is my approach to the business, to ring psychology, was entertaining the fans. The match was first, and you or me, that it was what it was. Mm-hmm. But I went in to dance and entertain the people more so than worrying about getting all my shit.
Mm-hmm. And I was like that at the beginning. I think maybe, were you like that at the beginning?
I remember when I went from Dallas to Tennessee, and, I'd only been in a business 2 months, and Jerry Jarrett said I was ready, so I drove down there. And I remember working a spot show, and Dutch Mantell was booking, and he said, hey, man, just go out there and give us 8 or 10 minutes. And I was working with a guy in a hood. And, man, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, 8 or 10 minutes? What am I going to do in 8 or 10 minutes? That's a long time. Mm. Well, it's a long time when you're green. Once you get a couple years under your belt, and then, finally you need 20, 30, 40. But, back in the day, I was just about being mechanical, learning the basic psychology. Babyface shine a little bit. Heel cut him off, cheat, beat him up a little bit. That babyface comes back a little bit, a couple of hope spots, more heat. Finally, the Manic come back. And then either babyface goes over with his finish, maybe he slips on a banana peel and the heel beats him. That's your finish. Mm. But I was just going out there and doing your basic platform or format of a match. Basic. Now, of course, once you get into the advanced stages and you're talking, Brett Shawn 60-minute Ironman match, with multi-levels of psychology and different, heats, shine, cells, and it's damn near, half-ass equal match anyway with two of the baddest workers that were ever in the business. It's a whole lot of things thrown in there.
But the indie world now is so different because WWE, they don't even call themselves wrestling. They're proud to say they're not wrestling, right? So yeah. I'm just saying, you don't, whatever your opinion, but the indie world is such a different monster now. And, let's say I've been in it since 1999. So when you were like dominating the world, there was this small pocket, and it is a small pocket, it's a niche pocket, but that's how some of these people, make it in the wrestling industry. And I agree, that's definitely the way to work. Like, I agree 100%. So they need to stand out. How are you going to stand out in this? And it's what happens is these guys do crazy moves and crazy stuff. But so when I teach seminars and I do all over the world, I'm saying you can do that stuff. But they're only going to see it once or twice, and then you have to learn how to work. And so what's happening is these guys on 2, 3, 4 years are doing these crazy moves at indie shows, trying to get noticed or trying to get buzz on the internet.
Right.
And
I understand that mentality, because I remember being suplexed in Chevrolet parking lots, back in the day when we were wrestling at car dealerships and world-class championship wrestling. You can get some spectacular shine, but my approach was just, hey, both guys shine to make the match. Yeah. And then you both get over.
And guys are doing that today. They're working to have the best on these indie shows.
Yeah.
They're working to have the best possible match to steal the show. I think it's the same way yourself and Michaels and Brendan and everybody is to steal the show. But obviously, sometimes on the indie levels, I can sit there and sometimes do a facepalm. But I love it, though, because I appreciate that they want to do it. I'm looking at the younger guys who are trying to kill themselves.
Right.
And I know it's wrong, and I know they have no psychology to it, but I'm like, at least look at them. They're trying for it. And in 5 years, they'll look back and go, I was an idiot.
Either that or they did their damnedest and they didn't hold back and they went for it. Because I do agree you have to go for it. And it's like I told, young Matt on Tough Enough. I mean, playing, safe. Don't get you. So you got to go out on a limb. That doesn't mean risk your life.
And I see Matt Cross on the one of my best friends.
Oh, he's a great wrestler.
I'm shaking my fist at you right now, Steve. He's the best. I love Matt.
Oh, well, I like him a whole lot. And we talk on the phone on occasion, or we'll send a direct message. And he'll send me a couple of matches that he's had. But, in and of that situation, it was what it was. He had a chance to shine, and he didn't make the most of it.
Right.
So we're going back to, the guys, like you said, 5 years in, they went for it. hey, man, that was prime time, and he should have went for it.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It's like, just, man, that stuff. And I know you've had that, too, of like, should I, shouldn't I, shouldn't I, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to watch Matt, who had at that point been all over the world, and maybe just not tell anybody because he's being humble and he thinks like, okay, I'm going to show my respect. It was hard as a friend.
Well, because you knew what you knew.
Right.
But see, going into Tough Enough, I had never seen him work on YouTube. I go on YouTube, after the fact, I say, hey, this kid can do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
He didn't do a lot of cool stuff at Tough Enough in front of me. It was what it was. Speaking of Matt's, let's shift gears. Matt Capitelli. That's a friend of yours.
Yeah, I went to college with
so
him.
you went to college with him, and you got a degree in, business marketing?
Business marketing.
Western Michigan?
Kalamazoo.
What kind of grades did you make?
Awful.
But you got through and you got a degree.
While in college, I was traveling, 7 hours down to Louisville, Kentucky with me and my road mates. I made sure that my classes were Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
But you got a degree.
But I got myself a degree.
So you met Matt in college?
We played college football together.
What position did you play?
I was brought in as a defensive end. And once they realized that I was the smallest man of the defensive line in Division 1A college of all time, they moved me to linebacker. I was a redshirt freshman, so I didn't play at all. I wanted to quit from day 4. It was a horrible experience.
Right.
But I said to myself, I made this commitment. I'm at least going to do the season. I did the season as a redshirt, so knowing I would never get in a game. But I finished out the season, and then after that, I was like, okay, I've put off wrestling long enough. And what happened was I had to go to college. My parents made me go to college.
Damn right. Hey, anybody, I get asked all the time, and I'm sure you do too, Colt, hey, what should I do to get in the wrestling business? I tell people, and you can back me up on this, or you can go down a different road. I recommend the highest level of education or any kind of technical training that you can get before you pursue that dream of getting in the squared circle, because by and large, your chances are very slim at making it. And I'm not telling anybody to not follow their dream, but when you ask my opinion, get the highest level of education that you can. Colt.
Well, do you know what I've realized now is, and you'll agree with this because of all this stuff that you're futzing with, imagine if you knew how to do graphic arts. Imagine if you knew how to do audio engineering. Imagine if you knew how to do video editing. Imagine if you spoke Spanish or Japanese or Korean. Do you know what an asset you would be as a professional wrestler? So to realize how important these weird educational things are to you, you don't realize as a 16, 17-year-old because you're like, all I want to do is be a pro wrestler. But I'm sitting here telling you, and you're sitting here telling, if you learn that stuff now, you have the most amazing advantage in the wrestling world, because it's not just pro wrestling now, it's everything.
Well, it's everything, but my point is you need a backup plan. I didn't have a backup plan. I got lucky. My career was a lucky, hard-working fluke. So, but, I had, almost 17 hours to go, and then I dropped out of school. But to me, it's a backup plan because most people ain't going to make it. But going back to young Matt Capitelli, when Bob Holly throttled him on Tough Enough back in the day, and I always loved working with Bob Holly. He's a very funny, unique guy, dry sense of humor. He's a loner, but he's a tough guy. But I thought he shelled out a little bit hard on Matt, and I didn't agree with the beat down. How did you take that?
Well, I knew him personally.
Yeah. Well, it was hard for me to watch.
But what I knew about Matt, so when I played football at Western, I didn't have any friends. I had zero friends. It was kind
Are you a loner?
It was I'm not at all.
Right.
But I wasn't like everybody else. I don't know what it was. And Matt was always super nice to me.
Yeah.
And he was, and because when we would sit in drill, so when we're sitting in the computers while the coach is talking to us, he sees me on I don't even know what it was back then. Maybe Observer.com. It's
right.
I'm on the internet looking up wrestling stuff while everyone's talking football. And he looked over and he was like, "Oh, I kind of like wrestling." And so we started talking about wrestling. So we had a friendship kind of based off of wrestling. And then when I stopped football and continued and went on to wrestle, he'd always be interested. He'd be wondering about it. And the next thing you know, he comes to me and goes, "Hey, I'm doing this Tough Enough thing."
Right.
And Matt was. He's and he was on my podcast, and he's a hardworking dude, and he's nice, and he's a good Christian guy. And so when Bob Holly beat the shit out of him, I knew that it wouldn't break Matt. He was a hard-spirited guy, and I knew, and some of those guys on those shows, whether it's produced or not, they fight back and they do the wrong thing, I guess, in the wrestling terms of where they would yell at Bob Holly and try to have some kind of whatever. He was humble and he stood back, and I knew he was going to do that.
Right.
I kind of knew he was going to win. I guess that's cheesy to say, but I knew the guy. I knew what a heart he had and what a spirit he has, and I was glad he won. And for those who don't know, he's gone through cancer, and he's such a soldier, and I don't know. What a great human being Matt Capitelli is.
So he's a great human being. Tell me about life on the road for you. I remember when I first got into business, I would go down the road and travel with a lot of guys in the car because we were making either $15 or $20 a night. So a lot of human bodies packed in the car to, save money. When I started making a little bit of money, I started, traveling by myself because, I like being by myself. I enjoy being around people. I love people. I love working in front of people. But left to my own devices, I'm a loner. But I would go out, and when we would go to Chicago, I'd go to the Shed Museum. I'd go see this. I'd go stop at certain landmarks. But finally, I got that out of my system, and I only did it for a couple of years. And now, man, I don't want to go nowhere. If I go anywhere, it's to a job to do something. I go to the ranch to go do something. So when you're on the road, it's the Colt Cabana show. And since it's the indie scene, it's not like you can just say, okay, I'll pick you up at the airport to a bunch of guys. How is life on the road for you? What do you do
right now?
What do you do to kill time between the gig?
I'm doing my YouTube show, so I'm editing. I'm doing my podcast, so what I'll do is sometimes I'll fly in a day early, and I've got so many miles, I'll rent a car, and I'll go find a guy, and we'll podcast. I do my podcast in person, and so because I travel all over the country, I have access to everybody.
You've had some great guests on your show, and I've enjoyed listening to a lot of your conversations. Yeah. I really enjoyed listening to one with Mark Rollerball Rocco. That was very interesting because that guy was cutting edge, pioneer, and paved the way for a lot of guys in the UK. So that's the thing. A lot of the times I talk to people, it's on the phone because nobody's available. Because I like to talk to cats from the world of pro wrestling as well. Yeah. But I'm not in all these dressing rooms that you are. So it's great that you're able to talk to these guys one-on-one in person.
And that's what I'm doing. My schedule now allows me to do that. And I think it's good for me because in the comedy scene with the comedy podcast Boom, everyone's kind of in L.A., aren't they?
Yeah.
But wrestlers, there's no hub for professional wrestlers. We're scattered all over the world.
Right.
And so because I go around, so that's what I'm doing.
And you get a great mix of guests.
Yeah.
I think
the ones I like. No, it's the ones that what the great thing is too is it's the ones that it's like my friends.
Yeah.
And I've made good friends because of podcasts, because I've sat down we're having a real conversation. I'm looking you in the eye, we're talking, and we're making
don't get me wrong. I wanted to stomp a mud hole in your ass and walk it dry when you said you was hooked on John and Kate plus 8, but it's cool.
We're all from
We're 4
worlds,
feet
right?
away. Hey, I'm coming back. We're going to take a little pause for the cause and listen to some words from my sponsors. I appreciate these cats keeping this show on the air for free. I'm coming back with Colt. He just got finished taking a trip to Scotland, correct?
Yeah, I was in Edinburgh.
Let's talk about Scotland, Edinburgh. When we come back with the Steve Austin Show, we're opening up a can of audio whoop ass. Coming back with @Colt Cabana.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Coming back here with Colt Cabana, @Colt Cabana on Twitter. Colt, you got a couple of websites. Is it ColtCabana.com or ColtMerch.com? Where should we send folks?
Both, yeah.
So I got them both right.
I just redid ColtCabana.com, which is like the main page.
Right.
But, my life, it's almost like I'm still a wrestler, but I'm selling T-shirts now. That's kind of... It's what I do. That's how I make money.
Hey, so you said you were with what? T-Shirts Plus?
ProWrestlingTees.com.
Or 1 Hour Tees.
And 1HourTees.com. Yeah, and that's where you just get custom T-shirts. They make them in an hour.
So tell me something. Do they do the graphic design work for you?
Yeah, and I have a lot of, sometimes great fans send in artwork, but Ryan down at 1 Hour Tees, it's in Chicago. They're my next door neighbors. They got a big picture of you signed up there when you walk in.
Yep.
They're huge wrestling fans, And right now what they're doing is, so ProWrestlingTees.com is a site, and, it'd be the best to get you on. What happens is you support the wrestlers directly.
Right.
And you put up a page, because they print direct. So you put up a page of all your graphics, and if someone wants graphic C, then he gets the order for graphic C, he prints it up himself, he makes it in an hour, ships it out, sends you a bunch of money, he gets a couple bucks to cover his cost, and now all of a sudden the wrestlers, instead of the wrestlers getting $1 a shirt, they're getting real money here. And guys like Kevin Steen and the Young Bucks and Sanjay Dutt, they're all making real money, and it's pretty cool.
Great.
Yeah, it's great for the young, hungry wrestlers. it's so hard to make a living as an independent wrestler.
Spit that website out one more time.
So ProWrestlingTees.com is the place to go for like all these independent guys. And Dallas Page is on there, and Gold Dust. Mine directly is ColtMerch.com.
Right. So check it out. You and me have been talking about doing this show for a while. I reached out to you via Twitter, and another thing, I texted Punk, got your phone number, whatever, sent you a text message, and we started talking about getting together. We talked on the phone, and people have been clamoring for us to talk, and so we are. But we had to wait for you to get back from Edinburgh, Scotland.
Yeah.
You were down there doing, was it a comedy tour or a wrestling or both?
I did both. I did a comedy fest. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival is the largest arts and comedy festival in the world. And what happens is there's a comedian there in England who's from Australia. His name is Brendan Burns. He toured with Mick Foley, and he's a huge wrestling fan.
Is he funny?
Hilarious.
Okay.
Hilarious, yeah. And I do a show with my friend Marty DeRosa here where we do $5 wrestling, and we kind of talk over wrestling.
Yep.
We do the commentary, alternative commentary.
Great stuff.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And Brendan was like, would you like to do this show in Scotland where we watch wrestling every night at midnight, and we just kind of banter over it, riff over it.
Right.
And I did it for 25 straight nights. Had the time of my life. I got the show down. Now we're taking the show to England in October, doing Manchester, Leeds, London. I'm doing the show in New York City for the Rocks Off Pro Wrestling Film Festival, November 21st in New York City. And I'm hoping to kind of take this thing all over the world. It's the mix of my two loves.
So you have a stand-up act?
I did I was when Mick first started doing stand-up comedy, I opened for him.
Right.
And
so how long was your routine, typically?
I did 20 minutes.
That's a long routine.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I loved it. But for me, it was just telling wrestling jokes.
Yeah.
But I kind of parlayed that into the podcast, really, because then I just, those opening monologues, I'm trying to have jokes and witty manner. I'm just trying to, you know how it is.
Yeah.
So I'm a goofball as it is. So wherever I can mix the world of wrestling and comedy, I do. And luckily enough, I was flown to Scotland. At the time of my life, I saw all these great comedians. I watched all these shows, and then at midnight, I'd go do my show. It was so much fun. It was.
And when I talked to Jay Moore a couple of times. We did each other's show. I'm fixing to go back on his show. Very smart cat, very funny.
More
cat.
stories, great podcast.
Oh man, the guy's insane, wonderfully insane. I mean, as a compliment. But he's always talking about, you got to put in the time. I mean, it's just like being in a ring. You got to put in the time to do stand-up. There's a big difference from being green to being that 10, 20, 30-year guy. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I don't consider myself a stand-up at all. I have too much respect to say
right.
that. Yeah.
I'm not either. I don't consider myself a comedian in general. I can be funny, but I'm not a comedian. Mm-hmm. But it's tough.
Yeah.
Mick Foley seems to be having some pretty good success with it.
But also, at the same time, we as wrestling performers go out and do live improv every single
Correct.
night. You did improv for 300 years, if not more.
Not 300 years, but 300 days
300
Yeah, I'm not that. One time I wrestled a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Tyrannosaurus.
Let's go
Toronto.
into let's talk a little bit about some old school wrestling. You grew up in Chicago?
In Chicago.
Okay, so then did you grow up pretty much with WWF?
I would watch
And you're 33. I mean, you're a young cat. So,
but I was watching since I was like 4.
Were you a part of the mid-'80s NWA scene or anything from Mid-South Power Pro?
My father wouldn't take me to the UIC Pavilion and I wanted to go see Flair and Steamboat.
Yeah.
Was it 89, the bash there?
Shithole building. We wrestled there many times. I mean, there was a little bit of atmosphere to it. It was just so old, but it didn't hold a candle to Rosemount, which is my favorite building of all time to work in.
And that's how my dad was like, we go to the Rosemount Horizon. That's where we see wrestling. He's like, I'm not taking you to the UIC, but I was like, Dad, I wanted to see anything and everything with wrestling. And so NWA was there. I wasn't allowed to go. I remember AWA was on TV. I saw World Class was on ESPN after school. I remember Stunning Steve, of course. I watched as a kid. I remember that Windy City Wrestling was on. Like USWA was on.
Yeah.
Then Memphis.
What were some of your favorite high-profile matches?
I always tell people that I just love wrestling. I know that's cheesy.
Well, I do too, but I love a good match.
But I loved Iron Mike Sharp as much as I loved Hulk Hogan as a fan.
Right.
Like they were just all the coolest.
But certainly you would have to have Steamboat Flair or Steamboat Savage higher than an Iron Mike Sharp match versus anybody.
I don't know.
And don't get me wrong. I say that with all due respect to
Of
Iron
course.
Mike Sharp. I'm not trying to demean him at all.
I got sucked in by the stories too. Like it is as much as the wrestling, the stories. But when you had the story with the wrestling, and we talked about Macho Man a little, and all his stuff was always amazing to me, and Piper, like all those guys that were great. And I was sucked into Dusty. I always thought the world of Dusty Rhodes and his stuff, and the Horsemen, and when they got turned, and I don't know. I mean, just all of it.
Okay, so you're a fan.
Yeah.
Let's skip to the next one. What do you think about the current product that's going on right now in the squared circle in WWE?
I told you a little bit about this before we got on here. Am I watching wrestling now because I loved it as a kid and like I just have to be true to myself? I ask myself that sometimes.
What did yourself say?
So sometimes I think, like I just watch it for nostalgic reasons because I love wrestling when I was a child, and that's why I watch it today. Even sometimes I don't love it. But what's happening now is that a lot of my friends who I saw struggle and eat shit for a long time are now becoming big stars, and it's very fulfilling to me to watch my friends on TV. So that's another reason. Like, I don't know if I'm watching because I love wrestling or because some of my best friends are now giant stars, because Punk is doing what he's done. And Daniel Bryan, who, we made a movie before he got signed to WWE called The Wrestling Road Diaries. We made a documentary right before he got signed by WWE. And it was like our life on the road, and now all of a sudden, he's this megastar. So those are reasons why I watch it.
Where can people see this movie? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, the WrestlingRoadDiaries.com or ColtMerch.com.
Okay.
And I'll send you
a
link
on DVD
to it.
link? Okay, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
So how long was this process of filming?
We did it over a long weekend. We filmed 6 days. And
who's rolling camera?
A friend, John Atkinson, came over from England. Brian and I had been doing it because Brian assumed that he was never going to make it into the WWE. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, at this point when we filmed this, we were like, this was our life. And we had become very accustomed to being independent wrestlers. And the lifestyle was so weird. We were such like kind of gypsy weirdos that we wanted to film it. We thought it would be so great to film it.
Great idea.
Yeah. And so what we wanted to do was get a giant van or a bus and film like 3 months worth. Then we realized we didn't have anything to do that. So we went guerrilla style and we filmed, we set up a big tour. 6 shows, and we traveled, from Chicago to Cleveland for AIW, and then we did some ROHs, and then we went, in Philadelphia, and then we came back through Dayton, and we did this whole loop. Eric Santa Maria was our editor. He edited it together, and we put this.
What's the runtime?
It's long. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's like a wrestling. It's for wrestling fans. That's the way it was built. It's not necessarily for. I mean, it is a movie. It's not necessarily a movie bus, but it's for a wrestling fan. You see us, 3 in a hotel room, 4 in a hotel room, skimping on meals, sleeping at a fan's house.
There's some lean times out there, man. There's a lot of dues paying. And anytime I talk to anybody in the business, I'll give a couple of tidbits of information to anybody that's trying to get into the wrestling business or that's in it now. I know there's a lot of cats in WWE, TNA, whatever they're in the business, or in the indie scene that listen to this show. Here's a piece of advice from me to you. Document every single day you go through in a calendar, in a journal book. If it's 2 sentences, 3 sentences, or 5 paragraphs, or 6 pages, it does not matter. Put the day and the date, the year, put the whole thing up there and just write something. If you talk about your training schedule, your travel schedule, anything. Talk about the house, how many people were there. Maybe come back later, put in what you made for that house. But document it because you could be sitting on gold down the road.
That's great advice.
Mick Foley has such great recall when he writes all of his stories, and I forgot half the shit I did. That's just the way my memory is. But I wish that I would have written everything down because I have just so many stories, and I never dropped dimes on any of the guys in the business, but I just had, such a story to tell had I documented anything. So long story short, anybody in the business, guy, gal, whatever, write down every single day. And then when you go home, write that day down too.
When I got called up to the WWE, I started writing, just like you said. Like, I realized that, man, I really haven't been writing about my experience.
Right.
I know that I should write this down because this is interesting. Like, it's my first time I got called up kind of as like a jobber, and I was like, I want to write about and I saw the book in my head, like Life as a WWE Jobber, something weird. So I started writing, and I look at it now 5 years later, and I have like 7 weeks, and then I got released. And, so I only had 7 weeks, but I saw the starting of like a great book. And had I done that maybe throughout the whole developmental process, there was something there. It's great advice, and I recommend it.
But even in your travels today, man, you're not documenting this.
I am audio,
but I mean, still
to me, this is definitely my documentation of my life. And when 20 years down the road now, or who knows, something happens, I'm gone. These are my stories,
right? And
I'm super proud, and I'm happy, and I've realized that this is how I am documenting it.
I know Bret Hart wrote a lot of down, throughout his career, and he had such great recall when he wrote his book. Did you read it?
I don't read.
He wrote everything down, and he recalled everything with very clear brilliance. So
I don't read, Steve. That's like I've come to grips with it.
So then,
I've gone on a long passage about it. How at first I was kind of embarrassed.
Yeah,
but I can't read. The way you said it, it's just I go in a different world. Even Twitter, when someone fills up 140 characters, I'm like, that's too many. Can you just do 70 characters?
Dude, I'll start off on a paragraph, and all of a sudden, man, I'm thinking about something else, and I'm thinking, okay, and then I go back to what I'm reading, and I'm like, well, I read a page and a half, but I don't even understand what I read because I wasn't thinking about it. So
it explains my childhood, really. That's how I felt in school, and I always thought maybe I was dumb, but I don't think I'm dumb. Just reading isn't for me. It's not my way to learn. Podcasts or TV or movies,
Who's your favorite wrestler?
Les Kellett.
Okay, where's he from?
And he's from England.
Okay.
And he's the one that made me realize there's more to wrestling than just hip tosses and arm drags. To see the art and the comedy. And what he does is he does justified comedy. And, he's wrestling. He's a tough man. He's from the old world of sport, 60s and 70s British television. And he's a comedian. And he's a headlining comedian because, there was...
But he wrestled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I mean, he wasn't a comedian. He was a professional wrestler who made people laugh and was great at what he did. And he was a main eventer. And he made money. And people have told me throughout my whole career that funny don't equal money. And I'm not going to say exactly who it is, but he's a guy with a tennis racket. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And he says, you ain't going to be able to draw funny don't equal money. And I, for so long, I want to say maybe he's right. I got to be, maybe I should just copy Stone Cold and be Stone Cold, Colt Cabana, But no, I see it, and I'm going to spend my whole career, whether it takes me because Les Kellett didn't make his break till he was 55, and he's the best. And I recommend YouTubing.
I'm going to get on YouTube. I'm going to check out Les Kelton, and I like a lot of that old world of sports stuff. Man, there's some badass cats on that. And of course, Finley comes out of there, and that's one of my favorite guys of all time. But to our point that we were just making, very subjective. You, Les Kelton, me, Ric Flair, both equally great in our minds.
Right.
So, real quickly, before we wrap this whole shenanigan up, I heard word on the street, if you want to talk about this, that you was fixing to go do something with WWE.
Oh.
Can we? No. Or can we talk about anything with WWE?
Well, I mean, you're Stone Cold Steve Austin, so, if they don't want it to get out, too bad. I mean, so here's what happened. Punk's DVD came out, right?
And you and CM are obviously very good friends.
And you can see that in the DVD. And I think what happened was I love watching live wrestling. And there's something so cool. A lot of those guys always watched it at the monitors, WWE. But I would always go to the arena because I think there's something cool about just watching the people that your friends in the ring with 18,000 people around. And so I love watching Punk wrestle live at the
whole different experience. You can feel you can feel the energy of that crowd.
Yeah, there's something to it. So I always go and try to watch Punk live, and Hunter saw me, and he said, and what I assume is that he saw the DVD, and he was like, "Whoa, this guy can talk, and he knows about wrestling." Not. I'd been there for 2 years in their system, but I don't think he even knew my name at the point, So he was like, this guy knows about wrestling and he can talk. Look at him. And so, he's like, you want to fly out? And I was like, all right. And I tried it. And then I didn't hear anything back for 4 months. And then, I think Punk said, hey, man, would you tell them if he has the job or not? And then he called me back and they said, oh, we want to try you out again. So they flew me out again. And then I didn't hear back from him again. And then, I just ran into Triple H at the Allstate again. And he's like, whatever happened? I said, nothing. And so I didn't hear back, tell me yes or no. And from there, I'll decide if I want to do it because I'm not really sure. I don't know yet because this world's been great to me. And I've been my own boss for 3-4 years, when I was under the WWE umbrella,
right.
And I always say, I was a bottom guy of 6,000 people. To them, I was the number 6,000 most important person when I was under contract there. But for me, in my business, Colt Cabana, I'm the number one most important. I'm always looking out for me.
You got to look out for you, and
But I'm the most important person in my business.
In your business.
Me. Yeah. Whatever. I don't know if they want to announce or not or whatever. But I'm going to go down. They asked me to come down again, so I'm going to go down to Orlando and we'll see if something works out. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, good luck with that. I mean, you do have the gift of gab. You are very knowledgeable about the business. I think you would be a positive mark on the WWE. Let's talk about Santino Marella right now.
Yeah.
Comedy worker.
Right.
Very funny. Very good at what he does. There's a spot on the card for that cat.
That's what I think. I love it. I'm a huge Santino fan because and when I go to those live shows, that crowd pops and they love him. And if there's some agent there who thinks old school or whatever, they're like, you don't know how to work, you don't know what. You listen to that crowd, man, they love that guy.
The time could not be more now for more comedy because they're trying to. Back in the day, and when I was hot and heavy in the business from falling in love with it at 7 or 8, I mean, it was it was like a laser of this is wrestling, and it's about heels and baby faces and belts, and then you throw a personal issue on top of that, and you just put gas on the fire. That's what we're all about. Well, now it's a bigger tent, and it's all about entertaining. It's always been about entertaining as many people as you can, but the pie is bigger now. And so they're trying to entertain more people. So now, more than ever, another comedy-type act would be welcome.
I mean, there's only so much I can hear from everybody, and I'll tell you a story. I did a dark match after Punk waved to me on television after his little talk. I did a dark match. Randy Orton, who I don't know at all, really, he pulled me aside and he goes, "Hey, man, I don't know you, but I watched John Laurinaitis ask Daniel Bryan if you would be good for this company." And Daniel, I don't think as my friend, but just as a guy going like, this guy can entertain anyone. He's great for all crowds. He's great for children. He's like the Pee Wee Herman of professional wrestling. Like, there's so much you could do with him, any spot on the card. And Randy Orton, who I don't know, is telling me like how this guy put me over for 5 minutes to the head of talent at the time. And I asked John Laurinaitis what he thought about my match and my future in WWE, and he told me I had a hole in my gear. That was my feedback, was fix the hole in your gear. So so that's where I stand. Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, they have no clue.
Consider the source on that reply. That response. Consider the source on that, and I'm not speaking bad about John Laurinaitis, but, when you ask a guy, and that's the response that you get.
But it's not going any further from that. You see what I'm saying? Like, it stops right there.
He's not there anymore. And again, I'm not speaking bad about John Laurinaitis, but, I mean, when you ask a cat a question, and that's the answer you get, not a great answer.
But we'll
leave it at that.
I feel like that's like the story of my life a little bit, though, And so it stopped there.
But if it is a story of your life, you love the business, you'll keep going up and down the road and doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
And what I do say is I'm fulfilled unbelievably creatively through the audio and the podcast and the worst promo ever that I do. Sometimes, and I talked about this a little on the podcast I did with Punk on my 100th episode, sometimes I wish, because I wrestle in front of like anywhere from 200 to maybe 500 people a week, sometimes I wish I could take my style of wrestling and wrestle in front of 15 to 18,000 people, not for money or monetarily or anything, but to spread almost the joy of pro wrestling to more people with my style.
Right.
I wish that opportunity was there for a little bit. If I had no restraints on me, like I could just be comfortable and confident.
Right.
And to do my fun-loving wrestling style in front of that many people, and to let more people know of like the awesome comedic style of wrestling, that would be wonderful. And I think that would be fulfilled a little more on a scale like that. But there's so much that comes with that. So never say never. It's pro wrestling. But where I am now, I'm comfortable and I love what I'm doing, and I have such a great rapport with my niche pocket of fans. It's not, it's not in the millions, but it's enough to support me, to help me continue. And at this rate, I can go till I'm 60 and then have my own little Jewish skull ranch in Israel or whatever it might be, and then call it a day,
The Star David Ranch, wherever he buys it. One last question I got to ask you, man. I talked to a lot of cats on my show that had some hard times. I recently talked to Sean Waltman, ex-Pac, who had a lot of issues with some substance abuse problems. I went down the road. I'm never an abuser, but I was kind of out there for a little bit. Many guys have been. We've lost many guys. Out on the indie scene, specifically, what's the lay of the land as far as stuff in the locker room? What kind of kill are these guys on? Are they straight-laced or?
For me, and I believe this for anyone, and Punk has really been able to show everyone, like, And I don't drink, I don't smoke, I've never done drugs, I've never done any of it. And I think Punk has shown it. And he's not only shown that, but he's represented straight edge.
Right.
And now there's millions of kids who are now becoming straight edge and adopting that. It's great. And so not Ace Steele, but my other trainer, another guy told me when I started training, I said, am I going to have to take steroids? And he goes, yeah, you're going to eventually have to take steroids. And I was always like, oh man, but I really don't want to, I never did take steroids, and because I just didn't want to. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to, but I don't want to, and I stuck with my own, my own guns, and I just never did them. And I think it's the same way with drugs and drinking. If you don't want to do them, you don't have to do them. And I was gonna say, the guys now getting into wrestling, and I think it started I think Edge and Christian were maybe the first ones to do it. It's we didn't get into wrestling because we were hardworking guys at the bars who were fighting. We got into wrestling because we're big wrestling nerds.
Right.
So there's kind of a stigma of the indie guys now. We're just dorks. We're wrestling dorks who love wrestling. So, some of the crazy partying really isn't going on because and the culture is shifted and everything's shifted, and we're just a bunch of wrestling geeks who happen to be in wrestling, who worked hard for our craft. And I speak for myself, but I speak representing a lot of the indie guys who work hard and study and love it. We just haven't gotten a break somewhere else, so this is the path that we have to take because we didn't play football somewhere or our father isn't somebody. So this is our path, and we work hard, and this is what we do.
So quick words of advice to any young cat that has aspirations of being a pro wrestler. Yeah. Where do they go?
I mean, there's a couple ones that I recommend.
Okay, recommend them.
Truth Martini has a school in Detroit. I always recommend, Lance Storm. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Calgary. Yeah, Lance Storm's awesome.
Why you wouldn't go train with him. And those are kind of the two that I have. I don't know.
No, yeah, that's all the two you got. I was just going to ask you 411.
Yeah, that's Truth Martinis and Lance Storms I point people to. But I do believe, learn the internet stuff now for later in your career. Have it in your back pocket. Learn how to do video. Learn how to do media. Because I'm editing my own YouTube show. I'm editing my own podcast. And John Morrison had a great story of how he would edit his own promo before he got to TV. He would edit his own promos and then show them to the WWE people. And they were amazed by it, and eventually, he got called up because they're like, look at this guy. There's a lot of unbelievably talented. I had a lot of creative outlets and creative things I wanted to say and different stuff to pitch, and I had so many great ideas, but I couldn't put them and edit a video and show somebody. It was just in my mind.
Right.
I didn't know how to get out there.
Right.
So if you know how to get it out there, then you're one step ahead. You're one step ahead of the game.
Well, all right. He's Colt Cabana on Twitter. You can go to ColtCabana.com or you can go to ColtMerch.com. Anything else we can spread some love on?
Every Monday night I do the worst promo ever. It's just my YouTube. It's like a minute and a half, and it's with my comedy partner Marty DeRosa, who's a big fan of yours.
I'm following him on Twitter. Yeah. One of the days I'll have him on the show.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I don't know. Just come to a show, come say hi, come support any way you can. It doesn't have to be by saying hi and saying I thought you were great on Steve's podcast. That's all the support I really need, to be honest.
The Art of Wrestling podcast. You do this once a week.
Once a week, every single Thursday. Yeah.
Every single Thursday, your show drops. Have you ever thought about going 2 times a week?
I would say subscribe on iTunes. I don't think I want to go 2 times a week.
Right.
I think for me, it's hard enough because I'm going out to different places to get everybody, I guess. I thought about different variations of it. I know you're doing, sometimes you do just the questions podcast, and I've thought about that, but I don't know. I'm kind of stubborn. So, I think I'm going to stick with this once a week. I've been doing
just question out of the blue.
Yeah. That's my plan, I think, for the next 40 years.
Well, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the part of the podcast where I'll catch your ass down the road. Hey, man.
All month long on Pluto TV, stream the biggest Tyler Perry movies free. Watch your favorites like Medea's Witness Protection and Medea's Big Happy Family. Join Tyler Perry as he goes on a couples retreat with Sharon Leal in Why Did I Get Married? Or Idris Elba and Gabrielle Union in the Tyler Perry directed film Daddy's Little Girls. Plus, Pluto TV has hundreds of channels with thousands more movies and TV shows. Available on live and on demand. Download the free Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming now. Pluto TV. Drop in, watch free.
Yo, what's up, guys? This is NBA champion Bobby Portis of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Bobby Portis in the Bucks. Inside, Portis for the slam.
Here with my brand new podcast, Keep It a Buck. Each week, me, AB, and Barrette.
It's your boy Blessed Up AB, man.
They call me Baby Tay, they call me Red Tay, they call me Barrette.
We'll be talking to special guests from fellow athletes, celebrities, and friends from all walks of life. And you know we'll keep it a buck. So you saying you better than J. Cole?
J. Cole.
Cook J. Cole.
J. Cole nice, though.
My floater is Hall of Fame.
Knocking your game.
They got to watch it guys like Chris Middleton and Giannis, like watching these guys like 300 makes a day.
Not, and I'm not talking about just shots.
Make.
Just ain't gonna come just because you dreaming about it. You gotta actually make it into a reality. You gotta speak it into existence. You gotta make your daily deposits every day.
Lunch meat.
Download new episodes of Keep It a Buck every Thursday. Coming soon on PodcastOne or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Keep it a buck. Peace.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy, Big Brother Jake, a.k.a. Jake Warner.
My government name.
Check it out. I host a show called the Big Brother Jake Podcast, and I'll take my talents to the biggest and baddest platform on the planet. That's right, baby. PodcastOne. My show is unique as I talk about everything. Life, sports, entertainment, being a single dad juggling several jobs. I'm a hot mess, but it's damn entertaining. Subscribe and review now on Apple Podcasts and listen on PodcastOne or wherever you get your podcasts.